For question 1 on quiz 1, we're looking at this radio signal characteristics of this graph. And so you have the radio signal's characteristics are illustrated by the function below. Which statement about the function is true? So you have lots of different choices here. So to go through each choice, the first one, we say that's correct, but let's talk about why it's correct. Let's go through the other ones first. The range of the function is a set of all real numbers. Well, remember the range is what's the y, because domain is the x. Well, if you notice, this only goes up to 1, and it only goes down to -1. So that is not the set of all real numbers. The range is not the set of all real numbers. Now it says the range of the functions is a set of all numbers in the interval of -6, 6. And they're saying, now here is -6, and here's 6. Again, the range of the function, and that's not true either. That's not the range of the function. And then it says the domain of the function is a set of all real numbers on the interval -1, 1. Well, actually, that would be the range, not the domain. So those three answers cannot be, because none of those would actually make any sense according to the definitions of domain and range. So the one that really is the inverse relation of the function is not a function. And if you were to take the inverse of this particular wave, you would actually picture it turned on its side, and that would not be a function. Now this is question 5 of the Module 1 quiz, and says from the graph below, the point 4, 6 represents a or and what. Now if I'm going to look to where 4, 6 is, 4 obviously goes across the x-axis, 6 goes up to the y-axis, and that looks like it's at the very top of this parabola, the very top of this parabola. So what would that be called? That would be called the absolute maximum. For question number 6, it says if f and g represents the functions, then f of g, and this is actually the composite function, and that would mean f of g of x, and that's by definition. That was in your textbook. For number 7, they're saying, okay, if f and g represents functions and their independent and dependent variables are shown in the table, then what is f of g of 4? So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to find, according to the last one, remember we do g of x first. Well, we're going to do g of 4. G of 4 is 7. Now we're going to take that value and we're going to put it back in for x to find out what f of x is, and that would be 4. So the answer to this one, f of g of 4 is 4. For question number 8, it says if the inverse of f of x is of f of x, then the graph f negative 1 of x, and by the way, that means inverse, and f of x would be mirror images reflected across which line? And this is actually by definition that if one function is an inverse of the other, then it is a mirror image or reflected across the line y equals x. For question number 9, they're asking us about this floor function. Is y equals the absolute value of x, with each y value defined as the greatest integer, not greater than its corresponding x value. Respond to each part in 1 or 2 succinct, direct, well-developed sentences. So the first one is describe the range of the floor function. Now remember, the range of the floor function is going to be what the y is. Well, if it is the absolute value of x, then the range of the floor function is going to be everything positive. The second one says describe the graph of the floor function. Now, an absolute value graph kind of looks like a V. So the graph of this floor function is going to be a V. And determine the value for y when x equals -2.5, and explain your reasoning. Well, the value for y when x is -2.5 is 2.5, because when it comes out of the absolute value sign, it is going to be positive, and that is by definition. And this last question, they're asking about this graph of the function h of x. The right and left ends of the graph extend infinitely as shown. Respond to each part in 1 or 2, 3 succinct, direct, well-developed sentences. So the first one says, over what intervals values x is the function increasing, decreasing, remaining constant? Now, I know it's kind of hard to read, but when you're looking at from this point to this point, that is increasing. It is going up because when we read a graph, we read it from left to right. So this point right here would be -2, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, -4. And then this point right up here is going to be 1, 2, 3, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So from the -2, -4 to +3, +6, that is when it's increasing. Now, if you notice, when it is remaining constant is everything after that. So if you're looking at -3, 6 and everything to the right, that is when it's remaining constant, absolutely after that. And then same with before the -2, 4. That is why that is remaining constant. Now there is 1, 0, and that is right here at the origin, and that would be 0, 0.